Draftable legal is a desktop application. So that's really important. Nothing leaves their environment. So if they're worried about InfoSec data security, it is a desktop application. Nothing leaves the environment. So in that respect, it's safe. We do have IS certification. We can send them security information. But as a generic answer, nothing leaves their environment. So that's the first positive. The other thing just to bear in mind, so Draftable Legal has been an active product on the market for about 2 years. However, its pedigree is a PDF comparison software, which we started about 10 years ago, and then changed this into a legal software, which took about 5 to 6 years of development, and then we launched the product. So although it's relatively new on the market, it's got a 10-year-old pedigree. So that's really important as well, because you may well be asked that is where we are. We also know there's one other player on the market who's just joined the market, and they are a good few years behind us on the development of the algorithms. So that's where we are in the marketplace. But yeah, let's go into the demonstration. So we're a desktop application. So for the users, they simply open up the application. He says as he just tries to open it, gives it a couple of seconds. There we go. And then as a user, I'm faced with Draftable Legal. So I'm going to split this into sort of 4 key sections, and that is what we can see as a user, first of all, how we select documents, what we can do with the comparison, and then the outputs. But as a general rule of thumb, what we say is we're one application, and that's regardless of whether we do Excel, PowerPoint, PDF, Word, PDF, Word. Material Compare out there has multiple applications. We do everything in one. So that's really important. So as a user, I'm faced with the menu options. So let's go through what we can see and what it does. So on the top bar, we have our bulk compare. That will enable us to compare multiple documents, and I will show that later. Anywhere in the system, we have a help button, and that will take you to the relevant part of our website with help on that particular article. So there's some self-help there. And then we have the settings area. Now, for the users, they won't generally go into the settings area very much, but I will show those in a moment. The next thing we have is we have where we actually select documents. And as we can see here, we can drag and drop, we can browse, we can right-click. So there's multiple ways we get those documents in. I've set mine up to hook into the various DMSs, but they will define whether they use iManage, NetDocs, SharePoint, or local. That can all be configured. And then it basically says older document, newer document, and that's where we go there. We then have our comparison types. So we do several comparison types. So think of these as static and live. So for static comparison, we do redline in Draftable, which is redline into PDF. We do redline into Word, and we do a side-by-side comparison. We can also do an active comparison, which will be track changes in Word. And then if we were to choose Excel or PowerPoint, it will automatically default to redline in Excel or redline in PowerPoint. The other thing we have is profile. So the company can set up individual profiles. So let's go into a couple of areas now. So let's go into settings first of all. Now, again, when you're discussing this at sort of the high level with users or potential users, everything can be done on an individual basis or group policy. So we can use Intune, MSI installer. We have pre-configured installers. So it's easy to set out group policies, etc. So this can all be hidden away from users, or they can have access to it. So the only things I really just want to mention in the settings area is we have the red line. Let me just make that a little bit larger for you for the purposes of for the demonstration. So this is where a user can decide how that comparison is presented to them. So for example, they may see deletions as double strike through, but I may want to change the color. So again, a little bit of configuration. The other thing I just mentioned here is we often ask this about language support. So we compare to character level. So languages are supported, not an issue. Support languages, no problem at all. And this just gives the user some ability to define how much in-depth of a comparison they require. So for example, they may not want to compare headers, they may not worry about tables, etc. All fairly straightforward. But again, for the majority of users, they won't go into this section. The other couple of areas I just want to show is the integrations. This is just to show you we integrate with all the relevant managed DMSs. So very simple to select and choose, and this will make it simple for the users. They can just see one particular one. And then the final thing I'll show here is our one-click compare. Now, this is a workflow we create for the users, so they can all just do a one-click comparison, and we'll automatically do the comparison type we want. So in this case, a red line, and it will do the action we require. So I could do it to save straight into iManage or create an email with those relevant documents. So it's a very simple workflow process, but again, I'll show you how that works. And in demonstrations or when talking to a client, that's all we need to show about settings. So now let's choose how we choose a document. And there are various ways we can do this. But in essence, you can choose any type of format from email, Word, or local drive, or your iManage. So let me just show a few. So in the most basic ways, what we can simply do is bring up a folder, local folder, have here, and I can drag and drop. Really easy, straightforward. Very, very simple. If I've made a mistake and put the wrong document in the wrong way, simply swap those around. So that's the most simple, basic way we can choose a document. We also have the ability to see all our most recent documents as well. But in reality, most people won't work that way. They'll either do from emails or from their iManage or DMS system. I'm saying iManage in this case just because I've set it up for iManage today. So if we take an email, let me grab my emails. Bear with me 1 second. I could be working on a particular email. I'll just bring it across here. And in this case, this email has gone backwards and forwards to a third party with different versions. So I can drag and drop from here. But basically, the best case scenario, or how people should be using it in this scenario where we have lots of different documents, is we simply click on Draftable. Let me make that a bit clearer. And I want to compare attachments. So what that will do, it'll bring up Draftable. It'll bring up all those attachments in that document. And then very straightforward, I simply choose the two documents I want to select and then run the comparison. So again, we can see how easy that is. What we can also do, if we have text in the email, you can simply highlight the text, compare text, and that'll bring that through. So we can compare the text should we wish to. Again, very straightforward, very simple to use. Don't worry about this yet, but I will just mention coming out in 1 or 2 releases time, we're going to be able to redline directly within Outlook. So where we have 2 bits of text here, it will automatically redline without having to do that right click. But that's probably 1 or 2 releases away. So that's how we select documents from email. Really straightforward. The other way, which we don't generally show in demos, because again, it's a bit of a replication. But I can have my Word document up, and again, I have the draftable option here. I can select some text if I wish to, and that'll bring that through into Draftable. If I wish to, I can select this as the older or newer document. Again, tells you what to do. Users can follow that through nice and easy and straightforward. So they're the sort of 2 ways which are used quite a lot, but actually most organizations now are really focusing on their DMS system. So there's a couple of ways we can run this through our DMS. We can do it from the DMS itself or through Draftable. So in this case, iManage, I can simply click on iManage. This will then open up my iManage. He says, hopefully, there we go. I'll choose my relevant matters. And again, people use iManage in slightly different ways. We've just set this up to this way. So all I can do is I can simply select 2 documents if I wish to and compare those. Or in this case, if I have multiple versions, I can simply select the document, click on select, and then it brought that document through, but it said what versions do I want to compare, and actually I want to compare version 1 and version 3, select, and it automatically defaults the earlier version to the older document and the latest version as the newer document. Again, very simple, very straightforward. And the other way we can choose documents is from iManage itself. So we don't even, or for the users, they don't even need to come in the morning and open Draftable. It will automatically open from iManage. But again, we have multiple ways we can do this. We can select, we can drag and drop. But what we can do, or the best way to do it, is we can simply click on the menu option. And then it gives us the option to compare just this document, compare versions, compare this document, the latest, or do that one-click compare workflow I showed. So I'm going to simply click on compare versions, open in Draftable. And again, as we saw before, you choose documents. Now, in a demonstration, it depends on who the users are. They may not want to see all of this because it's quite a lot of replication. But again, it's nice to show them Draftable can work on how the users want to work. Email, local drive, Word, or their DMS. And that's very simply how we choose documents. So let's see what we can do now. So let me just choose a couple of documents we can do a comparison on. So this is quite a good example because I've chosen a PDF and a Word or DocX document. I'm going to run a comparison. It's always worth mentioning here, this will probably be slightly longer than a normal comparison of Word, PDF, because it's doing some conversion. But we can see here we have our status bar. It will tell the users what's happening. And then run it through, and then we run there. So just whilst doing the comparison there, I will say, as a business, we have about 4,500 to 5,000 documents we're continuously comparing to check we've got the speed and the accuracy there. So we are very much focused on the development of the solution. So as a user, I've done the comparison. Great, what can I do? Now, hopefully 99% of the users have used a comparison bit of software before, whether it's Word, whether it's one of the material products, Workshare, Docker course, whatever it may be. So a lot of this will be familiar to them. So we don't need to go into too much detail about how a comparison works, but we need to show them the key features and functionality of Draftable. The thing I always like to show them first is a very quick summary. So where this is really useful is if there's a particularly large document, it will give them an idea of how long they need to work on this document. This is quite simple comparison. It'll take 20 minutes. If it's hundreds of pages, we got thousands of words deleted or changed, then it's going to take a bit longer. So that's a nice little quick feature. We then have our menu option at the top, and all this replicated down the side, but let me go through what we can do. We can open this in PDF. We can save it locally. Really useful for those with iManage, NetDocs, etc. We can save this to our DMS, and we can save this in multiple ways. We can save in iManage as a new file, a new version, or new related file, depends on how they want to work. And then what we can save is we can save the red line. So this is the red line document we're seeing here, and we can save that as a PDF or docx. We can just see the change pages only if it's a very large document. We can save this as a track changes. We can save this as a changes report. And we can save this as a departures table, which is a more in-depth sort of report, really. We also have the ability for all of our comparisons to have a summary page and a changes report, and we can decide where they are. We can print it and we can email it. But the other things we can do is we can do a 3-pane view. So this will give us the original document, the modified document, and the changes there. And then we can simply go through the changes as we wish to. We can do this manually by scrolling down. So if you can see there, I can hover over there, and we see this has been a move with 2 edits. We can see that's been inserted. Or we can simply scroll down to the relevant changes in the system. But again, best practice, if we click on the changes, this will give us the ability to scroll down and simply click onto where the changes are. And this is where we become a little bit more interactive with the comparison solution. So what we can do, we can start tagging things. So we can say, actually, that is a low priority. That deletion's another low priority. This actually needs action. And what I can do also add notes, so saying please review. So if this is done by a fee earner or fee earner's admin, they can start building up a bit of a picture about the changes and start adding little notes and tags there. Then what we can also do, we can filter. So we can filter or to show or not to show, and we can filter on those tags if we want to, or we can filter by the change type, whether it's an insertion, deletion, etc., the location, header, footer, main document, or the content type. So again, not so relevant on a 15-page document, but 3,000 page document, we can start actually tagging and filtering as we need to. So that's great. What else can we do? Well, let me go into the change on the right-hand side, and this is where we have various options. Some are replicated from up here. The first thing we may want to do is just to say for everything, I want to do a summary page and the changes report. And the first thing I want to do is open up the Redline PDF. So simply open that up. What I will say, and it's always important to make users aware of this, if we run a changes report and a changes summary, it will take a little bit longer to open up this PDF because it has to create that report and summary. So this will be the longest time it takes. Most users will turn this feature off, but I just really wanted to show that. So let me just bring that up, that PDF. And there we have our comparison summary. So for an audit trail, it will give us what the two documents were, where we ran the comparison, what happened. If we need to send this to a third party, it will have the markup scheme. It then has our full changes report. And if you can see there, it has my tagging and my spelling mistake or my capital mistake of my little notification there. So again, if I want to review this quickly, I can go through there. Oh, that's high priority, I need to do that. And again, we can send this just on filters as well. And if I scroll down, we have our PDF. So again, we tried to make this as simple for users as possible. The other things we can do here, we can do just a changes pages if it's multiple document. Really useful feature is the users now, I'm not sure how Latera works, but I believe you have to come out the system and rerun the comparison. But we can simply click on track changes. This will then run the comparison in the background and will automatically open up the Word track changes document. So if you give it a couple of seconds, this is running that through. There we go. And then it has, again, I've asked for it for the comparison summary. But then what we have here is our changes. And then we can just do our normal track changes as most fee owners know how to do that. Let me just close it off. The other thing we have new, which is new, is called our departures table. This is getting really positive feedback. It's in beta at the moment. It will be launched to everybody in the next release. So if I click on departures table, this creates a really, really nice document. So if there's already a clause in there, it will bring the clause forward. But if you can see here, it's called the departure from that relevant bit of the section. And it gives us the ability now to put in things like reason for change. So we can say needs to be reviewed. And then I'm just making this up as I go along. There may be a commercial impact costings. Whatever we need to do, we can put notes in there and we can save this, attach it to the file. Again, it's a much more in-depth report and it gives the fee owner, so again, if an admin person runs the comparison, they can run this, the fee owner can go into quickly and see, oh yeah, all the relevant bits. Okay, I don't have to go through the whole document, I can see what's changed. Brilliant, I can go into that and look into a bit more detail. So that's our departures table coming out next release. Really, really powerful, really useful.
Steve?
Yes?
I just want to make a comment. That changes report, if you don't mind just clicking on the changes report, that one that's just above there. Just for the team on here. So like Tira's products previously, if we wanted a little report of what was changed or deleted or those things, their report would only say how many changes, how many deletions, how many moves. But what I love about this one is it will actually tell you what it changed to, what the text was and what it changed to. And for people like our companies, I'm not going to mention on this call because it's recorded, but for clients that we have, this is a great benefit that they've got as part of their contract reviews. They can put notes in there, and every time they pull it, that new note will be there as well. And they can see why those things are suggested for change too as well. So this thing alone is a big value add for customers.
It is, and we are, well, we've already put a departures table, which is the next level up. We're always reviewing this, so this may change slightly to be even better. We're just trying to work out whether we want to do that or not. But what's really useful, and it's great you said that, is this with tagging, and again, it depends on how the organizations work. If they have somebody else doing the comparison reports, they can just go through the whole 600, 700, 800 page document and tag everything. So as a fee owner, I can filter that so I don't have to see anything which isn't tagged. So it's all about efficiency. So yeah, that changes reports, really, really useful document. And again, we can save that into our iManage.
Yeah, it's awesome. This Steve, sorry, Jaco here. The tagging is awesome. I mean, like, is it fixed tagging, or can people, as a client, can you go and create your own custom tags that will be relevant to your firm or your environment?
Being looked at, that is in our it's being looked at. It's not down as a priority because we've only ever had one person mention that, far from yourselves. So it is down as a roadmap wish.
Sure.
We have other priorities, but it's in our longer term roadmap. So at the moment, no, but yeah, we're aware of it, and whether if there's more of a demand, we'll do it.
But the tagging is awesome already, so it's cool. Okay, thank you.
And just on that, so as a business, we get lots of feedback from our users. Everything goes into product feedback. So some of the things we see here literally came into the system after a client said, "Can we have that?" and we turned it around in about 2-3 weeks. So departures table. 2 of our clients wanted to put a departures table. We started looking at that in November. It's in beta, and it'll be in our next release. So that's 3 months to turn that round. It's quite a complex document. So if any of your clients come back and say, "Look, it's really good, but we want that or this," let us know. If it's feasible, it could go into roadmap. If not, we'll say it's not. But most things we can put into the system really, really quickly.
Oh, that's fair enough. Thank you.
Okay, so I hope that's answered that. So the final thing I'll just show on here is we obviously have the same system as we have up here. We can save it to DMS, etc. But email is really useful. So I can click on email. And then again, I get lots of options. So what I will say is one of the things we sometimes get asked is, "Oh, there's lots of options for the users to do." When they choose their options for the first time, it will automatically save their default choices. So they don't need to change this every time unless they manually want to change things. But I set mine up to say, I want to email the Redline document. I could email that as a PDF or docx. I want to send the original file. I also want to send the modified file, but actually I want to send that as a docx, and I want to call it, excuse the type in, please only change this doc. Okay. Happy with all that. If it's a massive document, I can zip them. Simply click on send. And that will create the email for me on the other screen as always. There we go. And there's created our email for me. Straightforward, really simple, nice and easy. And for most of the users, that does enough for them. They say, yeah, actually, that's really useful. But I just want to show you guys a couple of extra features, which you may be asked about or may wish to show, depending on the clients. So the 2 things I definitely want to show, or 3 things actually, is bulk compare, one-click compare, and Excel. So bulk compare, again, this has just been changed. So it used to be version 1, and then we can bulk compare between version 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, etc. But now we click on bulk compare, and then we can simply drag in multiple documents. Drag in. Right. Sorry, I'm in a mouse mare. Oh, there we go. Don't ask me how many documents you can do. We've done about 1,400. So that in theory, you can do as many documents as you want. So let me just make that nice and easier to see. So we have all the documents there. We can move things around if we want to. So I can compare version 1.3, 1.6, 1.5 with version 3, version 0, version 2. So I can continuously build this up. And all I simply do is click on a compare. It will take a bit of time. So I always add caution when we do this in a demonstration because it has to obviously do comparison between all those documents. And what it will do, run the comparison through, and then we can open up each individual comparison. So this is how it works at the moment. We are actively reviewing whether we can do a method to do a table of the changes within all those versions. So for example, we could have a clause in version 0, and we want to do a comparison report between that clause in version 0 to 1.3, 1.6, 1.5, 3.1. Bit of work needed doing to it. That's the goal. We're working on it. Whether it will happen or not, and when it will happen, I can't tell you. So best not really to mention that unless you really want to, or they ask that question. But at the moment, we'll do a bulk comparison between all those versions. I say it does take a little bit of time. It will suddenly come up and open up, and then we can open up those comparisons. So that's bulk compare. I'm just going to cancel that because it will take a bit of time, if that's okay. Again, just to give you a bit of insight onto where we're going as a business, what we don't like is the fact is if I'm a user, I have to choose my documents and then say, oh, now I want to do a bulk compare. Oh, I've got to go onto here. So in a couple of releases soon, that bulk compare button will be gone. And there'll be a plus button somewhere here so we can dynamically do a bulk comparison. But again, that's a couple of releases away, but that's going to be happening on the system. So let's have a look at one-click compare. Again, it's going to be a lot of familiarity, which is being done at the moment. So what I simply do, I can choose to have a document in there as I would do. I want to do a one-click compare. So simply, this can be done through iManage or wherever I am, but I'm going to do this through the local drive. I've got the ability to do a one-click compare. Simply hit on that. Don't need to do any more interaction within the system. It's going to do all the comparison I asked it to do, which was a Redline PDF and create an email. If I got that, remember that right. So we'll do that automatically. Don't need to worry about it. I can go and do other work, or I can run other comparisons as well. That's not a problem. We'll generate the PDF, and then the email's created. So very simple, one-click compare. Again, that was from a client demand. It is used by definitely companies who run document production teams, where they'll run the comparisons for third parties, or those who have teams which admin who do the comparisons. But yeah, really nice feature. And then the other couple of things I just want to show is Excel. Same for PowerPoint. So as soon as I choose an Excel file, it'll do Redline in Excel. But what I can do, if I want a quick Excel comparison, I can do a side-by-side. This will be the same for the Word, for PDFs as well. Let that run through. Again, this was how we used to do Excel, very simple. Don't know why, there we go. We've gone our sync slide, there we go. So we can see the red line, sorry, the side-by-side comparison, really useful for quick comparison. And then close that off. I can do a Excel, and I've just seen also a question there, just while I was running the Excel.
Just writing my questions while you work, Steve.
No problem. So that's a good one. Let me just bring this through. I'll come to that Mac question in a moment. So redline in Excel. There we go. Very simple. Redline in Excel. What's been deleted? What's changed? And that'll do formulas as well. Again, depends on the client. Some like it, some don't care. Up to them. So